Well, welcome to this online info session for the Masters in Literature and Arts at Oxford. Thank you very much for joining us. And we're really pleased that you're interested in the MLA, and we hope that this session will give you more insight into the programme and hopefully inspire you to apply to join us next year. This session will last 45 minutes and will guide you through our programme. This session is being recorded, so your cameras and microphones have been switched off, but you can submit questions via the Q&A function, and we'll answer questions in the second half of the session. But for now, you can sit back and relax. You might have come across our profiles online already. I'm Carly Watson. I'm a literature scholar. I work mostly on 18th century and Romantic literature, and I am particularly interested in poetry and women's writing. And I also teach an option for the MLA on 18th century and Romantic writing about nature and landscapes.
Sorry, Carly, speak over you. I'm Pippa Byrne. I'm a medieval historian, and I mainly work on ideas about religious reform, translation, and intellectual exchange in the 12th and 13th centuries. So quite a different area.
So in this presentation, we'll talk about some key aspects of the programme and give you an overview of its structure. And we'll also talk briefly about the resources and opportunities there are for MLA students here at Oxford Lifelong Learning and in the wider university. And as I said, we'll answer questions after this presentation. So what the MLA offers, first of all, is quite distinctive. As you know, the MST in Literature and Arts is an interdisciplinary degree in the humanities, and it's distinguished by its breadth of scope across disciplines and across periods. And it has 4 core disciplines, which are listed here: history, English literature, history of art, and philosophy. The name of the programme might suggest that English literature and history of art are the main disciplines. That, in fact, is not the case. The MLA is a humanities programme that offers opportunities to study all of these disciplines at an advanced level. And it's not just a programme that allows you to study more than one discipline at the same time. It's a programme that encourages you to think about connections between disciplines and think about how something in one field might illuminate or speak to something in another field. And I firmly believe that all that is really needed to get started with interdisciplinary study is curiosity and an ability to ask questions. A lot of the questions that you might ask when you think about literature, art, or material objects from the past could be thought of as interdisciplinary. So, for example, if you're reading a 19th century novel, you might wonder who read it when it was first published. And that is a question that would lead you from literature into history. It would lead you into looking at who could read or who could afford to buy books or borrow books from libraries in the 19th century. And those are questions that literary scholars have been interested in and have explored in great depth already. Or, for instance, you might wonder how some of the themes of the novel were dealt with by artists in the same period. So you might think about how did artists depict 19th century London or family relationships in the 19th century or the new developments of that era? And those are questions that would lead you from literature into art history. And those are the kinds of questions that the MLA is designed to help you pursue. And it's designed to give you the chance to explore disciplines that are new to you. So you don't need to have studied literature before in a formal setting to take an option on literature. You just need to be willing to read some literary texts and learn some new methods of analysis. And as I'm sure you're already aware, the MLA spans over 4 centuries of history from around 1450 to 1914. And it focuses on Britain and Britain's relationships with the rest of the world during that broad historical period. We take an expansive view of British history that includes the history of the British Empire and Britain's engagements and interactions with the rest of the world. The image on this slide is just one small snapshot of this global dimension of British history. It's a photograph from the Royal Collection taken in the 1870s of a statue of Queen Victoria at a road junction in Mumbai, India. That's all I have to say about this broad overview of the programme. I'm going to hand over to Pippa now.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we have the next slide. That would be wonderful. Brilliant, yes. So picking up on what Collie's just said about that sort of expansive approach to Britain and the world, the first residence for this programme is entitled Britain in a Global Context. And really what you do on that residence is explore a range of different options for thinking about Britain and the wider world. It's mainly focused on the 18th and 19th centuries, and the emphasis very much is about discussion, about thinking about how you might bring your own interests or expertise into the seminar, identifying texts, artworks, sculptures, material culture that might speak to this wider theme. So if we have the next slide, we can see this in a little bit more detail. So currently, we've just had this residence. You can sense here that the topics you might be studying for this kind of first section of the course. We have non-European travellers' encounters with Britain, Orientalism in 19th century British paintings, the Crimean War and domestic responses to it, and British collectors and classical antiquities. And I hope you can sort of see from that, you get a sense of just how broad the opportunities here are in terms of different aspects of Britain and the world, but also how each of these topics speaks in a different way to that sort of interdisciplinary aspect of the MLA. All these topics kind of invite you to think not just about texts, but also about images, not just about literature, but also about history and philosophy. So one of the really interesting things is thinking about here you've got this kind of overarching topic, but how do you want to approach it? What do you want to take from it? What do you want to draw out from this? And you can either really zoom in or take a much kind of broader, more theoretical approach. So really the onus is on the student to think about how do I want to engage with this theme, as it were. Brilliant. Can we have the next slide, please, Carly? And so, of course, Britain and the world as a theme continues as an idea across the MLA, and as you go on to later residencies, you get a series of other options. And here we're just giving you a kind of snapshot or a snippet or a taster of later topics studied later in the programme. So you can see here overseas trade and the rise of Britain as a superpower, the British Empire and the country house, and then history, historiography and medievalism, the Victorians and the Crusades. Let me just say a little bit about one of those. So the British Empire and the country house, I think the sort of really engaging and interesting thing about that as an option is thinking about how perhaps one place, one residence, one building can be used as a way to think through the history of empire, to think about how this building comes to be, how we analyse it, how we read it, what its meaning is, and how that's changed over time. So you can see that there are all sorts of kind of different methodological and theoretical approaches that we might bring in here. And there's plenty of scope to think broadly, both in terms of chronology, but also critically also in terms of geography. Great, thank you.
Thank you. So in the next part of this presentation, I'm going to take you on a quick journey through the structure of the programme and the timetable of teaching and assessment. So we start with an induction day on a Friday in mid-October. The next day students are formally admitted to the university at matriculation, if this is their first Oxford degree. And the day after that, the first residence begins. The programme has 4 residences in total, and each one lasts 5 days. And these residences bring students together for an intensive and invigorating period of exploring topics and sharing ideas under the guidance of expert tutors. There is a full timetable for the 5 days. We do keep everyone busy. Sessions usually run from 10 in the morning until 4:30 or 5:30 in the afternoon, depending on whether there is an additional session at the end of the day. And most of our students' time is spent in seminars. There are core seminars in the mornings and afternoons. And there's also an introductory lecture at the start of each residence. And there's a supplementary session or series of sessions during each residence designed to foster interdisciplinary discussion, designed to get everyone together and invite them to think about the topics that they've been looking at and how they might connect with each other. And those sessions might also be designed to reinforce study skills. And each student also has an individual tutorial with the course director looking after their cohort to talk about their work and their progress on the programme. And after each residence, students usually find themselves overflowing with ideas, and they have 6 weeks to digest those ideas into an essay on a topic related to one of the subjects covered in the residence. So students write 1 essay after each residence. The first one is due in early December, and it's worth 10% of a student's overall mark. Students are required to submit 4 essays over the course of the programme, and they are each worth 10% of the final mark. And that is quite a modest percentage, and it means that students can use these essays to explore different subjects and experiment with different approaches without having to worry too much about one less successful essay bringing down the final grade. By the time students submit their first essays, they've already embarked on the first online component of the programme, which is Module 1. This online module explores the cultural history of Oxford and 19th century Britain by examining a range of works of art and literature connected to Oxford. So this is a module that I think helps students feel connected to Oxford and also learn more about Oxford in between the time that they spend here during the residences. And this is a module that aims to help students develop as interdisciplinary scholars by enabling them to practice a range of analytical skills. And this is the core purpose of the module. It's divided into a number of units, and each unit focuses on a different kind of artifact from the past, such as a building or a painting or a sculpture or a novel. There are a whole range of artifacts that are covered in this module, and each unit is designed to help students practice analytical methods that are appropriate to that type of artifact. And of course, students can then go on to apply those methods in the work that they do for essays and for the dissertation. The image on this slide is a detail, a snippet of William Holman Hunt's allegorical painting of Christ, the Light of the World, which is one of the artifacts studied in Module 1. There are several versions of this painting, but the original hangs in the chapel at Keble College, and it was such an attraction in the 19th century that the college started charging visitors to see it. It is possible to see it now without paying a fee. The college no longer charges. So the module is a series of units that students work through in between residences over a period of about 6 months. And it's designed so that students can do all their learning online. It doesn't require you to come to Oxford. It doesn't require you to go and find material in libraries. All you need is an internet connection. And it combines independent study and participation in group discussions through an online forum. So you're not expected to spend hours in front of your computer without any input or interaction with others. Students are asked to share their thoughts on the material that they look at in online discussions that they can contribute to whenever is convenient for them. We always have students in different parts of the world in different time zones. So these are discussions that students can contribute to whenever fits their schedule. And one of the course directors will drop in from time to time to have a look at the discussions and contribute as well. So in February of the first year, students come back to Oxford for the second residence, and this takes them back in time to the early modern period. And this is where students start to tailor the course to their interests. There are 4 options that are offered for this residence, and one in each of the core disciplines. And students take 2 options out of the 4 that are offered during this residence. What we ask students to do ahead of each residence is to rank all of the options that are on offer in order of preference, and students are allocated 2 options based on their preferences. We are usually able to make sure that all students have at least their first choice of option. Often it's possible to allocate students to their first and second choice, but that's not always possible. And after the second residence, students again write 1 essay on a topic related to one of the subjects covered in the residence, and the second essay is due in mid-April. The next residence, residence 3, is in the summer, and this takes students forward to the long 18th century. So we 18th centuryists are not satisfied just with 100 years of history, so we've expanded the century to include the period from the so-called Glorious Revolution in 1688 to the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. And as before, students take 2 options during this residence and write an essay for one of them, and the third essay is due in August. Moving into the second year now. The second year begins with another residence. This is the last of the program's 4 residences, and it brings students back full circle to the 19th century. And of course, there's another essay following that residence. So by Christmas of the second year, students have written 4 essays, which account for 40% of the overall mark. And there's only one more piece of assessed work to produce, the dissertation, which is worth the remaining 60% of the final result. And to help students prepare for the dissertation, there's another online module, Module 2, which runs from late November through to the spring. And this is quite different from Module 1 in that it's not a module that provides students with material to work through from week to week. With a package of material relating to a specific artifact that asks them to undertake a number of activities and test out their analytical skills. This is a module that asks students to work both independently and collaboratively in ways that can lay the groundwork for their dissertations. So one of the things students do as part of their work for Module 2 is to produce the next volume of V-Days. You might already have had a look at some of the past volumes of V-Days that are available via our webpage. We have a wonderful archive now of past volumes of V-Days online. If you're a classicist, and we do often have classicists on the MLA, then you'll know that in Latin, V-Days means you see. And we've also co-opted it as an acronym that stands for Volume of Interdisciplinary Essays, which I think is rather ingenious. I wish I could take credit for it myself, but I can't. Credit has to go to one of my predecessors. So V-Days is an online journal produced by MLA students Each student contributes a 3,000-word essay showcasing interdisciplinary analysis. Students choose 2 contrasting artifacts, which could be texts, images, or objects, to compare and contrast in their essays. And each student also plays a role in the editing and production of the journal. So this project is an opportunity for students to bring some of their professional skills in design, for instance, or copy editing, to this task of creating a new volume of this journal. And students can also use their V-Days essays as the nucleus of their dissertations. A V-Days essay is essentially a case study or a pair of case studies that can be used as the foundation for the broader research project that becomes the dissertation. And once a student has decided what they want to write their dissertation on, they're assigned a supervisor or possibly 2 supervisors with expertise in the field or the fields that their work is engaging with. And finally, just under 2 years after starting the programme, students submit their dissertations in the September of the 2nd year. So that brings us to the end of my overview of the structure of the programme and the timetable of teaching and assessment. So we move on to our remaining slides.
Sure. Thanks, Carly. Yes. So as you may already know very well, this is a programme which you study part-time. And I think part of the appeal of this, we have students who are combining this with work, with family commitments. It can be made to fit in around the rest of your life. But if you're thinking about how much time do I need to give over to this, what we recommend is, yes, on average, about 15 to 20 hours each week studying in between those residencies, which, as we've already mentioned, are these kind of fairly intense opportunities to discuss, to get feedback from and advice from tutors, but also to talk with your peers about some of the, I suppose, the interdisciplinary connections you're finding. So 15 to 20 hours a week is pretty much what you need to be able to set aside to make this work. And I think to sort of make the most of some of the big ideas that are available to you on this course. Could I have the next slide, please, Carly? Great. So yes, who is this course for? And really, I think as we've already been hinting, if you have an interest in the humanities, if perhaps your interests are difficult to categorize, they move between history, literature, philosophy, then this is for you. We have a wide range of different disciplinary backgrounds of students who are currently taking this course, and really I think that interdisciplinary point is the selling point here. This opportunity to think maybe more broadly than you have in previous courses, or to draw on different kinds of methodologies. The other important thing, of course, is making sure that you're able to balance the kind of demands of the study here with the other commitments in your life. In terms of age, we have, yes, students of all ages. In terms of background, that's true as well. And one of the really nice things about this course and these residencies is seeing people draw on their own unique backgrounds, their experiences, and think about how that funnels into the topics they're studying. We should say as well, Collie's already mentioned this, but it's an international cohort in many ways. Just under 2/3 are based in the UK. The rest come from across the world, and perfectly possible to do that. The nature, for example, of some of these online discussions means that it's entirely possible to be in a totally different time zone to the UK and to be contributing, to be engaging. So really, if this is something you're interested in, if you think you can make it work with your life, with your work, then yeah, we'd be really keen to see you apply. Next slide, please, Colin. The other thing we should say, Oxford Lifelong Learning, the department itself, facilitates this course, and there are some really useful advantages and benefits that are worth pointing out here. The department has its own in-house library, Ruley House, Obviously, it has study space, it has student support. It also has an excellent library, really. This is a library which is dedicated to students in the department. Other Oxford students don't come in and take books out. And over time, it has developed a really good set of resources that facilitate and support the topics you study on the MLA. It also has excellent access to ebooks, for example. So it really works to make this possible, this mode of study possible. It's also possible to book accommodation to stay in Wellington Square during the residencies, so you can be right on site when that first seminar begins at 9:30 in the morning. You're less than a 5-minute walk away in many cases from the seminar room, so you can just roll out of bed and into whatever the interdisciplinary topic happens to be that morning. And then finally, for this slide, the graduate school in the department is dedicated to supporting students, but in different ways. They have a kind of excellent programme of training events and social events. And those training events run from everything to thinking about, okay, how can I improve my essay writing skills? How do I pitch my big argument for this essay, for my dissertation? So how do I write academically? How do I brush up and refine those skills? All the way to things like, how do I use Zotero or EndNote to reference my essays. In addition to that, this programme of social events, which is a really nice thing. It brings people together. It's an opportunity to kind of make connections while you're here. And this programme, the whole programme, is mixed between some in-person events, but a huge number of these are online, so you can participate in them wherever you are in the world. Great. Next slide, I think. Oxford University, which you may have heard of already. So when you join the MLA, you become a matriculated postgraduate degree student. Matriculated in the sense you've been admitted as a member of the university, and also crucially admitted as a member of one of the Oxford colleges. And that matriculation gives you access to a whole range of resources. You can see here the image is the Radcliffe camera, one of Oxford's many libraries. And yes, the great advantage of being a student in Oxford is you can make use of these libraries, of these online resources, these really extensive collections. And there's, when you're here, frankly, a huge number of different libraries for you to work in and to check out if you like something very, very modern. We have those libraries. If you want to sort of ensconce yourself in something rather more early modern, that can be facilitated too. And then with membership of the university also comes a university card. And one of the things we encourage MLA students to do is to take advantage of the multiple different events that are happening around the university. Different talks, different seminars, almost all of them are open to all members of the university. And you can pull up a page online that will show you what's on this afternoon. And you can pick from that really rich and diverse list. Some of which might be interesting in relation to your own your dissertation or your essay, some of which may just sound interesting and you want to go along and hear about something you've never heard about before. So yeah, one of the real advantages here is that kind of access to a really diverse and deep world of learning. Okay, next slide. Now here, critically, application deadlines. So you can see there are two deadlines here. The first deadline falls on the 28th of January 2026, and that's also the deadline to keep in mind for those applying for Oxford scholarships. That's the first deadline. There is a later deadline, a second deadline, a final deadline, which falls on the 3rd of March 2026. I don't want to take up too much time. I'll just leave some time for questions, but worth saying, you'll be able to see online on the admissions pages for this programme, but leave yourself enough time to put your application materials together. Things like transcripts, making sure your referees are ready to submit a reference, having your personal statement and pieces of written work ready to go. So obviously as we get towards the end of the year, everyone's calendar starts to get much busier, but make sure that you have these deadlines in mind and you're thinking forward to them. It's the best advice I can give. Great. Thanks. And that is, I think, more or less the end of this PowerPoint presentation. You can see here, you can follow the website links to get more information about the programme. You can get in touch via email if you have specific questions that we don't manage to answer here today. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to us. I think now we will stop sharing the screen and turn over to questions. And the way in which we're going to do this, at least to start with, is that I'm going to I'll read out the questions so we can all hear what they are, and then we'll see how many we can get through. So let me just start with the one that's right in front of me. How geographically broad is the course, and is it geographically restrictive from a dissertation point of view? Carly, I don't know if you want to have a go at that before me.
It can be. That's a really good question. It can be very geographically broad as long as there is a clear connection to Britain. So I'm thinking of examples of past dissertations, for instance, that we have had. One that comes to mind is a dissertation that looked at the work of a British photographer who was working in Japan for a period in the 19th century. So that dissertation was about the history of photography, but also about Japanese history and representations of Japan in that period. There have also been dissertations that have looked at representations of parts of Africa, gift exchanges in what is now Iraq in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It is possible to write about a very diverse range of parts of the world as long as there is a connection with Britain and Britain's international engagements in the form of perhaps a British person who was engaged with that part of the world, or some other relationship with Britain. It may be that, thinking back to one of the examples we gave of the topics that are covered in Residence 1, it may be that the work actually focuses on someone from outside of Britain who comes to Britain, lives and works in Britain for a period, and that is the basis of the connection with Britain. So there's scope to do work that engages with all kinds of different parts of the world in a very wide range of periods.
Right, good. I think that gives a sense of the answer there. Let me look at another one of these questions. I'm going to read out a question, which then I'll answer myself. Someone says, I'm curious as to what Dr. Byrne will be bringing to the programme, and if her programme is expanding to earlier years with her expertise. So, as I said at the start, yes, I am a medieval historian, but I'm an interdisciplinary medievalist as well. So my role in the programme, I co-convene in the sense that I am helping to shepherd a cohort of students through the programme, discussing their feedback with them, discussing their experiences of the programme, thinking about sort of their experience and how we might improve it. At the moment, I mean, the programme we described, this programme which runs from the early modern period to the 19th century, that's the course. That's the kind of the core focus of the course, and the expertise of the tutors who teach on it is focused in that period. Let me scroll down to a different question.
If I could just.
Oh, sorry, Carly, go ahead. Sorry.
As a historian, of course, you have different interests from me, but also different background and training and expertise in different methods and approaches and theories appropriate to your discipline. I think it's important that we have those different disciplinary perspectives on the course team, as well as in the subjects that are represented on the course.
Thank you. Another question, sorry, is it possible, I think this relates to module 1, I think that's online module 1, is it possible to use textiles and Oxford's holdings as the art piece I would study?
It is possible to use textiles in Oxford's holdings as part of the material that you engage with if you're writing an essay or a dissertation. You are very welcome to do that. For module 1, you are asked to focus on specific artifacts that are defined by the module itself. So each component of the module has a central case study, which is literary or artistic or material artifact that is connected with Oxford in the 19th century. There are also opportunities, particularly when it comes to contributing to the online discussions, to find your own case study, find your own artifact that you think is interesting to think about in response to a particular question. So you're not forced to spend an entire week thinking only about William Holman Hunt's The Light of the World. There will be scope within all of these units to find your own material that you can that you think connects with the set material in interesting ways. But you have a lot more freedom when it comes to the essays and the dissertation to decide what source material you want to engage with and what will best help you to make the argument that you want to make.
I think at the moment our year one students are discussing a kind of a local piece of architecture near to them and thinking about how they might fit that within an interdisciplinary discussion of architecture. So they are, as it were, they have scope to think about what's most striking to them. I think then we've got a series of questions all about sort of time management and scheduling. So we have a question from someone who works as a teacher, and he says, doing more work during the 6-week summer holiday and half terms would work well for my schedule. Is there flexibility in the independent work to do some work every week, but take advantage of having more free time during school holidays?
There is, yes. There is some flexibility. There are, of course, advantages to trying to stick as close to the schedule as you can, particularly when it comes to the online module 1, because there will tend to be more activity in the group discussions within the week or fortnight after the discussion is opened and launched. So the liveliest discussion tends to happen during those times, but it's absolutely possible, for instance, to focus your attention on one discussion, for instance, that you want to contribute to and keep track of during the week or the couple of weeks after it opens, and then you absolutely have the freedom to then return to that material later if there are more activities that you want to engage with in your own time, if there's more reading that you want to do. Of course, the deadlines for the essays and the dissertation are fixed, but the schedule for the first online module does have some flexibility.
Good. Actually, that takes us on to the question immediately following, which is how long are the online modules?
Yes. Oh, how long are the online sessions? Yeah. Yes. So they are spaced out at intervals. There are 9 units, and they are released in groups of normally 3 or 4. So you'll get a cluster of units that are released in consecutive weeks. And so those sequences of units are released weekly, but they don't close after a week. So if for any reason you don't manage to work through the material in one unit in the week after it's released, that unit will remain open. All of the group discussions will remain open. You can simply work through the material the week after.
And indeed, some of these, part of the point of those online modules, or the online module 1, is that you can maybe come back to it, revisit it, not necessarily add to the discussion, but use the ideas that are there, kind of refresh your memory, and then take that into essays and dissertation. And actually, we have some questions about dissertations and supervision. One is, do you have to choose a supervisor before applying? And if yes, what advice would you give? And there's another similar question. Can we say a bit more about how students are paired with supervisors for their dissertations?
Yeah, great questions. So the answer to, does one have to choose a supervisor before applying? The answer is no. This is different from expectations around applications to doctoral programs. If you have a subject in mind, an area in mind at this point that you think you'd like to work on for a dissertation, then that is fantastic. But we do not expect applicants to have a topic in mind or an area in mind that they'd like to work on for the dissertation. And in fact, we encourage applicants to come to the program with an open mind, to be open to exploring unfamiliar topics, discovering new things. You never know what new interests you might find in the course of the program. And there is plenty of time in the course of a 2-year part-time program to explore new areas and to home in by around Christmas or spring of the second year to really home in on the topic that you'd like to work on for your dissertation. So it's that period after students have submitted their final essay, their 4th essay, when they'll be moving towards thinking about V-Days, thinking about what they'd like to write a 3,000-word essay on. But that, as I mentioned, can be a stepping stone to the dissertation. So that's also a good time to be mulling over. It's a good time for students to be mulling over what direction they think they would like to go in for the dissertation.
Great.
And we help with the process of matching students with supervisors. So we will talk to students about what their ideas are for the dissertation and try to match them up with the most appropriate supervisors who might be MLA tutors, but they might be academics working in the department or elsewhere in the university.
Yes, you're supported through the whole process of working out what's the best fit. I have another question here. Is a humanities undergraduate background a strict requirement, or is it realistic to apply if the rest of the application demonstrates readiness for the course?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A humanities undergraduate background is not a strict requirement. It is, of course, an advantage for applicants to have an undergraduate degree in a humanities subject. We do also look for other evidence of interest in the humanities and study of the humanities at university level. So that might be in the form of undergraduate certificate or diploma courses that applicants have undertaken. It might be in the form of short courses that applicants have undertaken in humanities subjects. Or in fact, in the form of modules as part of a larger degree program on subjects like literature or history.
I think exactly as Carly is saying, there are different ways to demonstrate your preparation and readiness and engagement with this. And if people have very specific questions, they are, of course, welcome to email. I think we have time for another question. Someone's asking, they have bachelor's degrees, but none are at a first class honours level. Is that a problem in terms of getting onto the course?
Yeah, another great question. I think it's important to emphasise that we look at an application as a whole. We, of course, pay attention to previous qualifications and grades, but we also we pay close attention to the written work, we pay close attention to the personal statement. We look at all of those components of the application and make a decision on the application as a whole. So we certainly don't discount applicants who don't meet the published entry requirement that we have on the website.
Thanks. And perhaps we have time, in some ways, a similar question to this last one. Someone is, as I understand it at least, saying that they are planning or perhaps already taking some short courses, which will be continuing into the new year, but they won't be finished before the application deadline in January. Does that mean they should apply for 2027, or can they apply for this round?
I don't think that means that they should apply in 2027. I think it's the engagement with the short courses that matter. Short courses are usually not graded in the same way that undergraduate degrees are, for instance. So it would absolutely be appropriate to apply, I think.
Brilliant. Yes. So I think yes, we take context into account, and really what we're most interested in is thinking about yes your engagement and your ability to kind of get on with the interdisciplinary demands of this course. Now I think that's 7:15, so that's probably all the questions we have time to answer. I'm very sorry if we didn't get to your question. You are welcome to get in touch if there's something that we haven't covered. But it's been really nice to talk to you about the course, but also to kind of hear your questions, or to read your questions rather than hear them, and to get a sense of where you all are on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Session.